Have you ever heard someone say, well, that may be true for you, but that's certainly not true for me? Or, the world is too culturally diverse to have one standard of morality. If so, what they're really saying is that there's no such thing as an absolute truth relative to the context of culture, history, and society. In short, truth is relative. In this video, I'd like to answer 4 questions that arise from those statements. What is relativism? Why is it bad? What is truth? And can I handle the truth? The first question, what is relativism, might best be answered by saying what it's not. Relativism is not relative thinking. If I ask you, is the Eiffel Tower tall? You might respond, well, yes, but compared to what? Compared to the White House, it certainly is tall, but compared to Mount Everest, it's nothing but a small dot. Relative thinking helps us to create order and to compartmentalize our thoughts. It allows us to make a truth claim relative to the standard that we've set. If the standard is the White House, we can now debate, using an objective standard, whether or not the Eiffel Tower is tall. Relativism, on the other hand, states that the objective standard is unknowable, not universally applicable. It's entirely useless. So why is it bad if your truth is different from my truth? Doesn't it make sense that truth would be relative, especially since people have such different cultures and experiences? Well, first, let me define a few terms. 1, absolute truth, and 2, values. Absolute truth is something that exists without being dependent upon anything else, things like good and evil. We do not need to believe in absolute truth for it to be true. Conversely, values deal with the importance, worth, or usefulness placed on something, things like creativity, helpfulness, and beauty. Values exist inside of a culture, while truth exists apart from it. The problem comes when we replace absolute truth with values, a practice popularized by Friedrich Nietzsche. At the end of World War II, the Nazis were put on trial for their crimes against humanity. The defense they used to justify their actions was that they were just following the German law of the land. Jews had no value. They were not considered persons under the law, and therefore the taking of Jewish life was not a crime. Now, what did the prosecution use to combat this defense? They appealed to a natural law, a moral law, that all people have the right to life. They appealed to a truth that is universal, cross-cultural, that exists outside of whatever laws society may create. History shows us that when values replace truth and those values are taken to their end, mankind suffers horrific atrocities. So, if it was a moral law that convicted the Nazis, there must be a moral law giver. And we as Christians certainly believe this to be true. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. So the question now becomes, can I handle the truth? Can I accept the truth claims of the Bible? The Scriptures not only give us a proper motive, but also a proper end for our daily application to our lives. This is not a slave obeying a master, but rather a child obeying a parent out of love. When a person makes up his own ethical code, he always creates one that he thinks that he can keep. The intent of God's law is to give us a law that we cannot keep, which shows us our desperate need for Jesus Christ, the one who kept it perfectly. At its core, relativism can be summed up this way: if I create the rules, then only I can judge my actions. It's nothing more than an attempt to overrule the moral law that has already been written on our hearts. I'm John Sorensen, and this has been Reasonable Answers for Honest Skeptics. If you like Reasonable Answers, like us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Let us know what tough questions you get asked when witnessing and what topic you think we should cover.